Theoretically, can a person get too much autophagy?
Imagine you've got a house, you've got to get rid of the rubbish. You don't get rid of the rubbish 3 times a day.
Professor David Rubenstein。Professor Rubenstein 任职于英国剑桥大学教授分子神经学，同时也是剑桥歪学研究所副所长与英国痴呆研究所领航负责人。本期他将与我们分享如何上调人体的自噬反应，以及我们人类在面对衰老时又应该怎么看待，才能够真正意义上的越活越年轻。
Look, one thing's for certain, you're going to die, okay? And you're going to die of something. I'm not afraid of aging. I don't feel old. What I'm afraid of is being burdened.
What do you think the biggest misconception the general public have about human aging or anti-aging itself?
I think maybe the biggest misconception is...
Sorry about that. We're not that professional.
Okay.
But we try to do as much as homework
Okay,
as
good.
we can.
Tell me.
Our video is mostly for the general public to advocate more about anti-aging, autophagy, and for them to understand much more easier stuff. So we wouldn't go into the super deep scientific aspect, but we try to let them know as much as we can.
Okay.
Yep.
But
Okay.
be careful, I might say some things you don't like.
No, that's fine. Free speaking.
Yeah.
Whatever you can
Just take
give
it
us,
easy.
it's great. I try really hard to really read all your work, at least as much as I can.
Okay.
And I'm not a professional. Autophagy and neurodegeneration seems to be the main focus of your research now, is it? But what really caught my attention was your work was the concept of upregulating autophagy, and I think that's mostly the general public want to know, because we hear all kinds of stuff, like whether through inhibiting the protein called mammalian target of rapamycin, so mTOR, or through external interventions such as spermidine supplementation. But from my understanding, it hasn't gone into humans yet. Can human body autophagic response actually be enhanced through deliberate interventions?
It's a good question. So what we know is that if you boost the formation of autophagosomes, either genetically or chemically, in fruit flies, zebrafish, or mice,
Yes.
you can ameliorate a range of neurodegenerative diseases. In humans, what we do know is we've had 2 compounds go into safety trials in people.
Okay.
So that's been done. We do not have data from proof of concept studies or studies that have really looked at
Yes.
clinical endpoints very carefully. And those types of studies will need to be done. I think the challenges are ensuring that whatever compound you want to use has the appropriate concentrations
Yes.
in the human, as you might have had in the mouse study.
We now know that the neurodegeneration disease that affect people manifests in the accumulation of toxic proteins. However, disease like Huntington's and Parkinson's, the toxic proteins that need to be cleared are different. So do we need to develop a specific cleaner for each disease, or is it possible to find a universal master switch?
So that's very interesting. So I think one can tackle the problem in 2 ways.
Yeah.
One can say, look, you just boost the formation of autophagosomes and it'll clear all these proteins.
Right.
We've shown that, and other people have validated
Right.
that, at least in animal models. So what would happen if you do that is that you boost autophagy generally, and there are some data in the literature saying that if one does that, it actually has overall benefits as well. So that's what I'm sort of hedging my bets on. But I know people who are working quite hard to develop what they call bifunctional molecules, like which specifically aim to remove either mutant huntingtin or mutant alpha-synuclein or tau from the cells.
Right.
And that wouldn't boost autophagy generally, but would just remove the specific protein. I think we've got to look to see what works best at the end of the day. But I've hedged my bets on just boosting autophagy generally.
Okay. If the origin of this disease lies in the accumulation of toxic proteins, does it mean it's not solely determined by genetics? That would imply that each one of us has to be highly mindful of our lifestyle, because it's not just genetics. We all have the potential to accumulate all these toxic proteins and become sick.
Well, I think it depends on the disease. So Huntington's disease is autosomal dominant, and most people will have a family history, and that is a straightforward genetic disease. Parkinson's disease, while it has a very strong genetic component, is not like that. Most cases of Parkinson's disease is not autosomal dominant, and so Parkinson's disease is caused. It's not very helpful, but by a constellation of different genetic factors working with some environmental factors which aren't that well understood and might vary from place to place or person to person.
Yes.
So we know some of the genetic factors that are involved in Parkinson's disease, which have small effects, but we don't know to which extent we can modify the risk with lifestyle in a disease like Parkinson's disease.
Okay. Like what you said, we should just boost our autophagy, and autophagy sounds overwhelmingly beneficial. But if there's one thing that I've learned from brilliant scientists like you, it's that human body always operate on a principle of opposing regulations, such as dopamine. When you hit a huge peak, you might expect a corresponding major crash in the not so distant future. So we now understand the benefits of autophagy, but theoretically, can a person get too much autophagy?
Theoretically, you can get too much autophagy, but as we've discovered more about the path, so we can get too much autophagy, but maybe I should try to explain what that means. The pathway has many different steps.
Yes.
And so the simplistic view of too much autophagy is that you've got too much delivery of the autophagic substrates that are captured to the lysosomes. I think that is quite that is regulated probably to some extent, because there are many hurdles you've got to get to the lysosome, and you've got to push each. And so I think that might not be the major problem. The major problem is if you push it too much, you're accumulating some of the intermediates, and they might have toxic effects. But I think that is not the biggest problem with drug discovery, because people have made transgenic mouse models, for instance, but also transgenic flies and worms, which have constitutively upregulated autophagy, and they live longer. The other point that I think that is important with autophagy as a therapeutic target is, imagine you've got a house, you've got to get rid of the rubbish.
Okay.
You don't get rid of the rubbish 3 times a day.
Right.
Yeah.
In Cambridge, they clear out the rubbish. We have a bin collection every week, but actually the real rubbish is only every 2 weeks. So so one is garden. We have 2 bins. So it's every 2 weeks. So you can periodically clean out the rubbish in the brain. And there are data from mouse studies suggesting that if you do that periodically, you can be effective.
You were saying that you couldn't clean your house, 3 times a day. But
you don't have to clean it.
You don't have
you can just clean it periodically.
you can clean it
but I mean,
every day.
Of course, because you don't have that much trash. But so people don't have to worry about, having a lifestyle that boosts their autophagy too much, because there's just nothing to clean.
No, I mean, I think that you do want to boost it. And what I'm saying is that I think if you had a drug that worked effectively, then you could treat in a pulsatile fashion. It's not like taking a drug for high blood pressure, where you need to have the drug on all the time, otherwise you're going to get a stroke.
Right.
You just need to clear periodically. You probably do need to do it over many years,
Yes.
but I think that if you clear periodically, you'll have benefits.
Okay.
And that will mitigate against the risks that might be associated with boosting autophagy too hard.
I found footage of you speaking about autophagy like 12 years ago, so I go through all your videos as much as I can, and you were talking about how do self-eating mechanism of cells help to deal with starvation. That was 12 years ago, but today, for the general public, the concept of autophagy largely begins and ends with intermittent fasting. And however, autophagy is in fact important for a wide range in different human body process, right? Not just the food we intake.
Sure.
So when people really go and practice intermittent fasting, does it really boost your autophagy, dramatically?
That's a big question. So I don't think anybody really knows how long you got to fast for as a human to boost autophagy in the brain. It's quite hard to boost autophagy in the brain of a mouse.
Especially
you got it in the brain.
Oh.
So, I don't even think people know how long you got to fast for to boost autophagy in the peripheral circulation or in the periphery. So I think people need to do those experiments. When we do our experiments, we fast our mice for 24 hours.
Okay.
But 24 hours for a mouse is like 7 days for a person.
Wow.
7 days.
It's a long time.
You can't eat for 7 days. I've actually wondered about something interesting about autophagy, though I think it's just in my imagination. Does autophagy itself become age or fatigue, or upregulating autophagy in an old cell? Is it more challenging than in a young cell?
I think it depends on the cell type.
Okay.
It might be an issue. And nobody has done those types of experiments very systematically, so I don't know what the answer is. It's an absolutely fair question.
Okay.
Does an old cell respond better or worse to autophagy upregulation than a young cell? It's possible it might respond better, depending on the stimulus, but we don't know.
Okay.
That is a good question.
In your eyes, do neurodegenerative disease resemble more of an accelerated aging process or a unique disease state itself?
I think they're unique diseases.
Okay.
And aging is a very important risk factor for many of these diseases, but it's not clear what components, what biology of aging is actually important. So, for instance, a major risk factor for Alzheimer's disease is aging, but it's not clear what that means biologically. How are we going to intervene with that? And so, it's remarkable if you look at your risk of getting Alzheimer's disease, from 60 to 90. I mean, the curve goes like this. So it's not just the passage of time in a linear fashion. It's definitely an aging thing, but it's not clear what that underlying biology is.
But is it possible to push it further?
That's what I think one should do.
Yeah, I mean, with autophagy, is it?
Well, I'm not sure autophagy is going to be good for everything. It's going to be good for certain diseases, but I think what we've got to aim for neurodegenerative diseases is to try to find ways to delay the onset.
Right.
Because essentially, it's easier to manage a disease before the organism or the tissue is very damaged.
Right.
And from a practical perspective, if I offered you the choice of having a disease delayed by 5 years or living 5 years longer once you've already got the disease, it should be pretty obvious which choice you're going to take.
Right. You know what I've noticed? I'm not sure whether it's just in my imagination, but disease like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's used to be a rare condition, and nowadays they seems to be more common because two of my colleagues, parents who have around their 60s, have shown the symptoms of early onset Alzheimer's. That makes you wonder, is it because the past cases went underreported, or is there a genuine increase that we are seeing in the world nowadays?
No, I think the main reason is that people are living longer for Alzheimer's disease. I mean, Alzheimer's disease has the biggest burden. And I think people are living longer, and because people are living longer, more of them are falling to the age range where Alzheimer's disease becomes quite common. When Alzheimer first reported Alzheimer's disease, most people didn't make it past 50. So, the disease that was most common in the mental hospitals that he used to work in was neurosyphilis. It wasn't Alzheimer's disease.
So you're saying that the world we're facing, because we have a much longer lifespan, we are actually having more risk on different variables of disease because we are living longer.
Correct.
Yeah. So maybe if we live even longer, there would be some disease
that we don't know will occur. You mean?
Look, one thing's for certain: you're going to die, okay? And you're going to die of something. Okay? I mean, Actually, I'm not sure that it's so nice to die of old age. So,
Yes.
and that's going to be a disease.
This question comes from one of our viewers. In your perspective, as a brilliant scientist, why has an exquisitely designed system as autophagy been conserved through evolution? Was it primarily to cope with starvation, to facilitate better development, or maybe to control infections?
Autophagy is conserved from yeast to people. It's quite interesting. Yoshinori Ozumi, when he was doing his very, very early experiments, worked out, he knew that if you have a normal yeast and you remove a key autophagy gene, it's more or less okay. It's only gets sick if you starve the yeast. In a sense, that biology is conserved to people. And the reason for that is that when you starve an organism, then autophagy kicks in. And what it does is it breaks down macromolecules into building blocks, which can be used for energy. And so I think that's probably the original function, so to speak, of autophagy. But as organisms have become more complicated, more complex, they've had other demands, and then autophagy's been amplified and made more intricate to cope with some of these demands. And actually many of those demands are already in yeast, but I think that it will be used for many of those other demands. In a sense, once the cell acquires a particular, I'll call it a subroutine for managing a particular problem, evolution's probably quite clever at using that existing subroutine to manage other problems that might come along.
For the general public, people are chasing, like what you said, people are chasing for a longer lifespan. Most of us want to live not forever, but much longer than if we can. From a scientific standpoint, do you believe that human aging, from what we know now, from all the research, can be reversed, not just simply extending the lifespan, but maintaining a highly useful function even in the advanced years? Perhaps it's difficult in the practical terms now, but theoretically, is it possible?
I don't know. But I'm not sure that the objective is necessarily the most important objective. I think what we should be maybe striving for as a society is to have people living the most fulfilled and satisfying, pleasurable, whatever, lives that are possible. And that's, as a society, that's maybe what we've got to be really pushing for.
Totally
They talk about health span, but maybe we can think about health span more than just not just simply being a not being sick span. It should be your psychological well-being, etc., as part of that. And I think that that's very important.
So from a scientific standpoint, you do think the mental health actually affects the body health as well?
I'm sure it does, and I'm sure the body health affects the mental health. That's why I was grumpy yesterday.
Because for me, it's the same. A lot of our viewers constantly ask me about, health span and lifespan, and what we told them was try to live as full as you can, and I think that's what we are all achieving. Because we never know what will happen tomorrow, but at least we have today.
So when I was young, I used to play the cello a lot, and one of my heroes was a cellist called Pablo Casals, and he lived actually into his 90s, and he remained active virtually until he died. But he used to say that he used to treat every day as if it was his last day. So he tried to live life to the fullest. And so, I think those are also important aspects. Of course, we want to stave off unnecessary disease, unnecessary suffering, but we also want to fulfill ourselves.
Yes.
So since you've done a lot of research of aging, do you afraid of aging? Let's put science aside.
No, it's a difficult question. The first time I realized I was getting older was when I was flying back from a conference, and I was sitting in economy, and I couldn't read because, you know, my eyes had become, long sighted. And of course, you know, other things happened after that. But I'm not afraid of aging. I don't feel old. What I'm afraid of is being a burden, or to other people, or suffering. You know, so some people have awful diseases where they really suffer, or disease, they don't, or, you know, their loved ones suffer, and those are things that I think we're all afraid of.
You know, people are always have the interest to know about how, you know, the professional, because you guys do so much research on different grounds and cutting edge research, and it's so surprising for me to hear from, you know, a professional like you with a not romantic angle but a really practical angle of, you know, just live the full extent of you can, and you're actually not afraid of aging. You know, as you have known so much about different angle about aging, and the conclusion being, you know, we don't know that much yet, but try to get as much as joy and as much of life you can from, you know, whatever your life is. And that's just amazing for me, actually. We have interviewed so much scientists during in our career, and never have one told me that, you know, you should just try to live your life as much as you
romantic.
can.
Also, do you have something, maybe some supplement or some workout for you to?
The exercise I do is when my wife and I go walking on the weekends. You know, often both days a little bit. I live in Cambridge, and very easy to get to the countryside. Not a long drive, you know. In fact, we have a farm across the road. We can walk for 40 minutes easy. Not see, you know, cars or anything like that. And it's not much further. We can, you know, go to lovely places to walk. So that's the most exercise I do, which is much too little. And I probably should do working out and more upper body strength and stuff like that.
You know, that's bad. That's good for you, but you don't like to do that. I mean, in scientific way.
I think one should do it, but I'm naughty.
I know, I get that. You know, nowadays many people are actively pursuing anti-aging through various methods. But from a scientific perspective, what do you think the biggest misconception the general public have about human aging or anti-aging itself?
I think maybe the biggest misconception is not clarifying what aging really means. So aging is not simply the passage of time. So the example I try to give to people is if you've got a child who's 5 years old and you compute the chances of that child dying in the next year, it'll be X. For a 5-year-old and for a 6-year-old and for a 7-year-old and for an 8-year-old, it's probably pretty similar. But if you've got somebody who's 80 years old and you say, what's the chance of dying in the next year? And you say, what's for 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85? It's dramatically higher at 85 than 80. And so that is what aging is, okay? It's there are fancy words for it, but I think that's the easy way to explain it. And so the question is, what are the underlying processes that cause that change, that cause that change, the hazardous event occurring? And so I think the biggest misconception is people not really understanding what aging is versus just the passage of time.
Right. From what you're saying, some people live full of energy at their 80s, and while some of them are already in poor health by 50. In your view, is the rate of aging primarily pre-programmed by genetics, or is it more affected by our acquired lifestyle?
That's very difficult to know. I think, you know, people who live a very bad lifestyle will age more rapidly. Genetics probably plays a part. and luck plays a part. And so
it's very hard to know.
It's quite difficult to know. And I think that, if one is sensible, you can take steps to reduce very bad things happening. You don't get very overweight. You do some exercise. You don't drink too much. You don't drink. You don't smoke. All those things help.
A lot of scientists tell me that what we know now, we're trying to know more, but what we know now is still too little for the whole human body. The knowledge that we have now is still a tip of iceberg. Is that so?
I think there's more and more and more to learn, but I think the tools that are at our disposal and the growing possibility of exploiting AI to answer important questions or to help answer or provide hypotheses for important questions will really cause dramatic changes in the way we understand things. So I think we should be looking forward to a very exciting next decade in science. I mean, the way we do science now is unrecognizable from when I was your age.
So it's
completely different.
It's very different.
When I was a student, a PhD student, and I wanted to look at literature, I had to go to the library.
Yes.
No
We
way.
used to do that as well.
And then there was something called Index Medicus, which was a very thick book. And you looked up keywords and you found the references. And then you found the references and you had to go to the shelves of the library and find the paper. Okay. Now you want to find the answer to a question. The first thing you do is you type it into Google. You ask the question to Google, the AI spits you an answer with a whole lot of references, or you can do a PubMed search. But now even the AI method is more rapid for answering a question. And of course you can be comprehensive by doing a PubMed search. So that's transformed life. If you want to inform your guess whether protein A interacts with protein B, you can use AlphaFold. And AlphaFold can start telling you which areas, which residues might be interacting. And so you can design the mutations to make your experiments better eventually. So it's a new world now.
Is it exciting? I mean, from a scientist.
Yes, because the possibilities are, the ability to do things has just increased dramatically. I don't remember exactly when people started knocking down genes with RNAi, but I don't think it was possible 20 years ago. It wasn't easy. It became possible around 20 years ago, but before that, it was very difficult to remove genes. Before the Genome Project, we didn't even know which genes there were.
Yes.
And the Genome Project is something that happened, while I was already studying, a junior faculty person.
Yes.
So I think that we live in a very exciting time, scientifically at least.
I never go into this angle of how you have all these scientific tools. It become tools for the scientists to really discover different knowledge. But for us, we have been talking about we don't have smartphones, and now smartphone is, especially if, like us, we live in China now, and smartphones are everything. It contains all your life in it. So
don't lose it.
Yeah, don't lose it. You can't lose it. From the field you're working in as well, what you're saying is we are going to see a lot of new research and we're going to see the whole field accelerate because of the tools that you have now.
Yes.
But you just mentioned in scientific way, but how about in society way?
In a more human way.
Okay. So we don't have a very long time for the interview.
Yeah.
But I would recommend you read a book called Nexus, Nexus, by a guy called Yuval Harari. The book is largely about his concerns about AI, some of the risks about AI, some of the social risks, some of the political risks. And I think they're significant. You know, when I was young, when I was a student, I used to read a newspaper, which was a newspaper.
Yeah.
Okay.
A truly
Now
newspaper.
I read a newspaper on my telephone, but I can tell you, you ask the students how often they read a newspaper rather than some funny news feed which is all biased. You'll find most of them don't read a newspaper.
Exactly.
Now,
They don't even read a sentence.
the problem is not that they don't read a sentence, is that they are fed headlines in a way that is completely biased.
Yes.
At least if I read a newspaper, I have some trust if it's a reasonable newspaper.
Yeah.
There are not so many, but some trust that the headlines, at least, or the stories, are capturing something that's vaguely representative. And there's some publications, some actually are magazines, which are very good in that respect. And so you can get an idea of what's really going on in the world, rather than what happens to be coming to your inbox. But the Harari book is interesting because it shows how social media can create a situation where you are fed stories that are very controversial or evoke disgust, which end up just basically capturing very extreme views of either side of a problem, and actually maybe not the most important information in between. And so I think that is a big issue, and we've got to educate young people and maybe older people too on how best to use social media and get educated. You know, you can't believe anything you read.
Yes. I think we are having too much information. And, you know, we used to have lack of information, lack of education. Now, we are still lack of education at some point, but, you know, the society, especially in China now, because social media are so big in China, and I think we have too much information.
So overwhelming.
Really?
Yeah. And people bring, you know, like autophagy, people bring fractions of the knowledge and they make it into a 10-second, 20-second video and they put it on, and such as, you know, autophagy makes you thin, and people believe it. They're gonna be like, I'm gonna boost my autophagy, I'm gonna try so hard on everything that I can do. Yeah, and you know, it's for us it's intimidating sometimes.
No, I think it's for everybody, and actually, you know, we're living in a new world now. I think that the next 10 years is going to be like a new type of industrial revolution with AI, and social media will come with it. And I think that, you know, the challenge is to exploit the tool properly,
Yes.
not to fall into the obvious traps.
Yes. It's been such an honor.
Yeah.
No, please, it was nice talking
Thank
to you.
Our pleasure.
No, live your life, enjoy it. That's the most important thing.